What is up guys, welcome back to Kit Guru and welcome back to part 2 of our WD Blackout build. Before I get on with this video, I just want to apologise, just in case you hear any weird noises during the video. There's somebody working literally right outside my door with some machinery, so if you do hear anything weird, that's what it is. We're probably a little bit behind schedule on this build actually. I was hoping to get this video out last week, but I was feeling a bit rough. I actually completely lost my voice, couldn't talk, which is not ideal if you're trying to create videos, but that hasn't stopped me getting on with some work on the case. So I basically stripped the whole case down, took out all the rivets, actually stripped it down to its component parts, so I was just left with a load of panels on the desk. The reason for doing that is I've painted the motherboard tray black, so that had a coat of primer, then it had a few top coats of satin black. Obviously we are trying to create a blackout theme for this build, so that was grey, now it's black. The bottom of that's going to be covered up hopefully by the custom distro plate that I'm going to make, and I'll be doing that later on in this video. And as well as that, I've also hydro dipped most of the panels. So this power supply shroud, it's actually in two pieces. So the top of the shroud is part of the motherboard tray, and then the bottom of the shroud, so this like front face, and the floor of the case is one piece as well. So I've hydro dipped that. I've also hydro dipped the top of the case, and I've also hydro dipped these two front pieces. These both can be removed from the front panel, so both of those have been hydro dipped, and so has this flap where you access the USB ports and everything. So I did them in, I think it's called a block carbon effect film, so that should go well with the motherboard, with the bits of carbon details we've got on that. There's also, you probably noticed, the front panel is missing, and also this side panel is missing. I've actually sent those off for laser cutting. So on this side panel there's going to be a large WD black logo down there. Possibly I'm going to back that with maybe some white acrylic, not 100% sure, maybe orange. And then on this removable front panel down at the bottom, we're having a laser cut WD logo there, which is going to be backed with an orange acrylic. So that's what I've done with the case. That's looking good. Obviously this panel here is going to be a glass side panel, so there's not much that I can do with that. But the main thing in this part 2 video is to make the distro plate that I plan to put on top of here. And if you saw the first part of this video, I made a bit of template, so that template sits on there. The pump's housed at the front of the case. I'm actually thinking now that I'll probably extend this distro plate as far towards the front of the case as I can, just so that it misses the fans and it'll go underneath the pump res combo. So that gives me all my inlets and outlets. This bit here, I'm thinking I'm going to change that. I'm going to make it probably quite wide and make it a lot larger than just, you know, just a simple channel, because it's going to kind of act like a second reservoir as well, and I think it'll look better. So I've got my template there for the real thing when it comes around to that. But what I've been doing in the meantime is I've been trying to make sort of like a prototype using 3 pieces of acrylic. So I had a central bit that I've cut out what will be the reservoir, then there's a back plate, and then a front plate that has a port for a standard G1/4 inch fitting. Bonded those 3 plates together with some silicone sealer. I had drilled and tapped the screw holes. Ignore the 2 extra ones there, they weren't quite in the right place, or the spacing wasn't quite right. I had to change the spacing. This prototype was not 100% successful, but it was able to be filled with water. It was watertight, but when I put a lot of pressure in it, it did just start to seep out of the edges. But I think I know why that happened. This is only 3mm acrylic, so it is quite flexible, as you can see. You can see, look, it bends quite easily. So obviously when the plate was under pressure, these pieces could flex a little, possibly causing a leak. And also what I'm thinking is I used countersunk screws on here, and I'm not sure whether those countersunk screws had as much clamping force as I was hoping for. So I think on the real thing I'm going to switch those countersunk screws for button head screws, which have like a flat register. So hopefully that will give me a bit more clamping force, and hopefully the thicker acrylic will work as well, because on the real model or the real thing I'm going to be using an 8mm central piece of acrylic, so that's 8mm thick, and then these back plate and front plates, these will be made out of 5mm acrylic. So I'm hoping changing the screws, getting the spacing of the screws right, and obviously using a thicker acrylic, I'm hoping that that's going to make it 100% successful, watertight, and be able to be pressurized without leaking. But before we dive in and try and actually make this distro plate, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give us a thumbs up if you like the video, head over to our store and pick up some merch if you want to help support us, or you could even subscribe to our Patreon. And don't forget, as always, you can head over to KitGuruTech to catch up on all the in-depth hardware reviews, catch up on some tech news, and if you want to connect with us, you can do so through Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and through our Discord channel. So to actually make this distro plate for real, I'm going to use 3 pieces of acrylic. The top piece is going to be made out of this 5mm thick frosted clear acrylic. I'm hoping that with this, if we use some coloured coolant inside the distro plate, you should be able to see it through that top cover. For the central piece that is going to make up the channels and kind of the second reservoir, is this 8mm thick black piece of acrylic, and I'm also hoping that you'll be able to a certain extent see the black through the clear top. And then for the base, just again using another 5mm piece of black acrylic. That probably shouldn't be too critical, the colour of that, because I doubt you'll see it, but you might just see the edge you know, through the side of the case. So black for the bottom, black for the middle, and then a frosted clear top. And then because I've not got any easy access to any CNC machinery or anything like that for this project, I'm not going to be able to machine any channels for O-rings to stop this thing leaking. So I'm hoping we can use a combination of some clear RTV silicone and a lot of machine screws around the perimeter and then around all the channels as well. So I've got a lot of M4 by 18mm button head stainless steel machine screws. So hopefully with the RTV silicone, with plenty of screws in, and because this is thicker acrylic than what I used with the prototype model, hopefully we'll not have any leaks. So what I need to do first is transfer all the dimensions and all the inlets and outlets from this template onto this top piece of acrylic, and then when I get all that marked out on here, I'll clamp all 3 pieces together, do all the cutting of the outline, do all the drilling and tapping of the screws that are going to hold it together, and then I'll have to cut out the central piece, so the channels for water channels and the area that is going to make up kind of the second reservoir. So first we need to concentrate on this top piece. All these 3 pieces of acrylic are not identically the same size, so I think I'll just bring this in from the edge about, say, 10mm, and we'll start from there. So we'll start in this corner, just mark the straight line that will be at the back of the power supply shroud. So that's enough there, so we're 10mm in from that side, and we also want to be, we'll go 10mm in from the other edge as well. Just mark a square line up there, and because this is a pretty accurate template, I'm just going to put a mark there. We can just mark another line here. And we also need to measure the overall width of this plate, and that is 164mm, but we do have a little bit to play with there, so I think we'll just round it up to 165. And then working from this back edge again as a reference point, you need to work out where the pump inlet and outlet is. Pump in and pump out, they're in line as well. So they're both at 295mm. And then we just need to take the measurement from this back edge to where the pump out and pump in are. Okay, that's the perimeter of the distro plate marked out. Also got the inlet and outlet for the pump, inlet and outlet for the GPU, and also outlet that goes to the radiator. I've also marked around the perimeter of the whole distro plate another line 10mm from the edge, and that is where I'm going to drill and tap the holes for the screws that will hold this plate together. Obviously there will be some more screws going in where the water channels are, but for now I just need to mark up where these screws are going to go. I can clamp these 3 pieces of acrylic together and then get on with cutting this out and drilling these screw holes. Okay, so that is the finished distro plate. There's one or two things I need to mention. You probably got a good idea of how it was made from the video. Basically, I just bolted all three pieces of acrylic together, drilled out all the holes, cut out around the outline using a jigsaw, cut out all the central bit, tapped all the holes, and then bonded it together and bolted it together. I initially used some RTV silicone to bond the distro plate, or the three pieces of the distro plate together, as well as using the bolts, but almost straight away the silicone didn't look like it was holding up too well, so I actually took it apart again and used some different sealer, which is more like a sealer and adhesive, hoping that that will be a better seal. Another thing I need to mention as well is I had to just slightly move one of these inlet ports for the GPU. I had to move it out about 5mm. That was because this central wall between these two water channels, it just wasn't wide enough. So I just moved that over. What I've done is I've ordered a offset fitting, so it's one that you can rotate. That should be able to make up that 5mm and bring that back in line. But other than that, it wasn't too difficult to make, but it was quite time consuming. One other thing I want to mention as well is the stainless button head screws. Maybe for the final build I might swap those out for black ones. I think they might look a bit more pleasing on the eye than the stainless steel ones, but overall I'm pretty happy with it on. As you can see, I've filled this section as well with some orange fluid just to see how it looks. You can see there's a couple of little bubbles floating around in there. I'll try and get those out for the final build. But that section at the moment seems to be watertight. The only problem is I've not actually tested this yet, so that's watertight, but it's not under any pressure, so maybe when we put this under pressure something might happen. I'm not sure, but we're going to find out, because I'm going to put it on the test bench. I'm going to connect it up just to the CPU block at the moment, run some load on the CPU for a long period, and basically see if it leaks when it's up to pressure. If any pressure builds up, there might not be any pressure that builds up inside here. There is a way to combat that. If there is some pressure that builds up, there are some kind of one-way valve membranes you can fit to the top of the reservoir. So for the final build, I'll probably fit one of those one-way valve, one of those membranes to the reservoir, just like as a safety net really. Just in case pressure does build up inside this distro plate and it does try and force any coolant past the seal. But who knows? We're going to give it a try now. So I'll just connect it up to the test bench. Everything else is more or less ready. I just need to connect a couple of tubes to this distro plate and see what happens. So I've been stressing the CPU using AIDA64 for just under 2 hours and 45 minutes. CPU temperature is hovering between 65, 66 degrees, probably peaking about 68 degrees. As you can see, I've had the distro plate sat on some paper towels. That's why I use the orange coolant as well, just in case something leaks, be able to see it better. There's no sign of any leaks. There's nothing on those paper towels. I can't see anything around the joints or around the screw holes or anything like that. But one thing you can see, and I noticed this virtually as soon as I turned the pump on, the seal's kind of blown out a little bit around that central section. I'm probably 90% certain that it wouldn't leak like that, but it does kind of spoil the appearance a little bit, because it goes like well, it goes back to the kind of frosted clear acrylic kind of look to it. So I'm thinking, before I do the final build, because I'm running out of time now for this video. But I'm thinking that maybe I'm going to try a few other things, one or two other different sealers I could try. Could even possibly try acrylic cement. That might in fact be the best way to go with it. I'm still confident that we're going to make this work. Just a little bit more testing and playing around needed, but like I said, so far over 2.5 hours, 2 hours 45 minutes, it's completely leak free, so it is, to a certain extent, it is a success. But I'm afraid that is where we're gonna have to wrap it up for today. In the next part of this video, I'll hopefully have improved the seal on that distro plate, and I'll be building the system for the final time. If you've enjoyed watching this video, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. If you want to help support KitGuru, head over to the store, pick up some KitGuru merch, or you could subscribe to our Patreon. And as always, KitGuru.net is there to catch up on some in-depth technical reviews, catch up on some tech news, and if you want to connect with us, there's always Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and our Discord channel. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.